My name is Guido Henri de Couvreur. I was interested from my childhood in two different things. On the one hand, I like to be engineer and to be a philosopher. In the last years, I am more and more going into philosophy because I guess this is most important. And I also see at the same time that in Belgium, at least, philosophy is more coming up again and again. I think it's so important that people are thinking more and becoming to a deeper consciousness. If not, what will education be? Education and consciousness, rethinking education, what can it be? As a member of the Association of World Education, that is, by the way I came to your organization here, and I was glad to see what was written there, because I think that is really to the point. Then also a Club of Rome member, and I'm also a president of the Mondo organization. The idea is to visualizing a global education policy for total consciousness. And these three sentences were struck to me. Global education policy that achieves fundamental, integrated and humanistic education around the world. The next generation should be empowered to realize the interconnectedness of all life, energy and consciousness. Can you imagine? I saw now only 3 days ago this sentence and I thought, wow, that is really something I'm speaking about for years now. And education today does not have a clear human-centered goal. However, well, its economic ones have been established, right? And before we can start, we have to think about what this famous philosopher said. The limits of my language means the limit of my world. Has it any importance? Yes, it has. As I followed many conferences, colloquia and things, I could see that many times people are speaking about something, but in fact about something different. Because they think what they think is what the other is thinking about this definition. So this means the limit of my language means the limits of my world. That is the same thing, but in different words. The limits of my language are the limits of my mind. Oh, all I know is what I have words for. Because if we have no words for something, we cannot speak about it. And if we cannot speak about it, most probably we cannot think about it. Philosophy is the battle against the bewitchment of our intelligence by means of language. I'm interested in philosophy of language for many years now. And it is important because if we have not the right words, we cannot right think. And if we don't right think, we cannot have the right ethics. That is the consequence. Then teaching is a way out of bewitching. And there are ways to reach the goal, and that is by schooling, training, and education. And here we come. Schooling, that is a word not everybody likes, but it is like it is, and there is a semantic problem, because school has many different meanings, like in School of Palo Alto, scholarship. By the way, I was following as a therapist many times the School of Palo Alto. And then the scholastic, the school of movement of a group of people with the same ideas, often within art, science, or politics. According to this semantic field, there is no connection with education directly. And then schooling gives a problem. We have seen in the three sentences I showed you from the program, we can find something here as well. Schooling, there are philosophical problems. So today's schooling in many countries is about dogmatism. And there is a permanent economic growth behind. But in my opinion, from ethology, we can say this is aggression, not only on humans, but on plants, animal, earth, sea, and air. Permanent economic growth, already the Club of Rome said in 1972 that there is a limit of growth. And we are learned in our schools here, still if there is the sky, no, I will say butade, the sky is the limit, but for me it is not, it is a lie. The earth is the limit. We are not living in the sky. We are with our feet on the ground. And there is in the schooling system many times a paradigm protection. And that protection means blind pragmatism. What does that mean? It is true when it gives profit to us immediately. That is good, but there is still a future ahead. And then a lack of what I've seen in all my years of studying is that there is a lack of philosophy of science. And that means we cannot see enough. All academics have the, not all, most of them have the problem that they don't see the boundaries of their knowledge. What is to know and what is not to know. Many things we cannot know. And then there's another thing in the schooling system too much all over the world today is the positivism. That means everything can be proven, but in my opinion, important areas of life are not covered by science. Although I like science and it is a source of knowledge. But most important things in life, like answers on the questions, what are we doing here? What are we living for? What can we do to improve the world? What makes people happy? What can limit suffering? And so on and so on. What can give peace of mind? That is not in a positive way to think. In my opinion, to be short, in philosophy of science, I can say there is a very great variety in things to investigate. There is a battle for years in my student time as well, till now, what is science? And then the schooling system today is so many times built on competition. And I am against, because competition is an opposition, as you can see on the slide, with solidarity. Competition is what small children are doing. Grown-ups don't need to compete all the time. I cannot elaborate on that, but, and then another thing is thinking in money. I'm saying this because when I was doing studies as an engineer, we were brainwashed with this idea that we had to think in money. Oh, and now, after all these years, I consider this as a very great disease because it is not leading to anything. And also what I find in the schooling system too much is that people are just studying to get a job. When I was 35, I was still going to the university. And then I was so disappointed that students were talking about two things, about what job they would get and how money they will get. And a third thing was also there, what questions the professor will ask. Well, I don't think this is in the light of good education. So then there is a third point, as you might remember, there is schooling, training, and education. Training has to do with repeating, drilling. It is sometimes good, like multiplication table. How much is 2 multiplied by 3? It's 7. No, it's not good. It is wrong, of course. It is only 6. That is good. That is training. We need to do that. Training is all positive in the sense, if you want to drive a bicycle, we have to learn and train. The training is there. If you want to have peace of mind, you also have to train that. If you want to meditate, you also have to train it. Is it not? Huh? It is at least my opinion. So that is good. But what is not so interesting to me, for many years I'm telling that for a sheep, it is not to blame to be a sheep, but what to think about human beings who live like sheep. That is something to stand still with. And many people are trained in many countries to live like sheep. I cannot elaborate on that because it would take other hours, but in my opinion, there is nothing wrong to be a sheep, but living sheep is not ethical high standard, and should be improved, and therefore we need a better education system. And then we come to the education system. I will tell there are at least two different views. One view is process of receiving or giving systematic instruction, especially at the school or university. And here it is said education, but in my opinion, this is only schooling, where there is a transfer of things. And there is another thing, education as an enlightening experience. I'm still thinking enlightenment started already 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago in some countries, not in Europe, but in the rest of the world. So like in India, like in China, enlightening started already, long time. In Europe, maybe 2,500 years ago, with these first pre-Socratic philosophers. And therefore, enlightenment education has to be an enlightening experience. As understood as much more, it has to do with lifestyle, a transfer of values. And what value I got is we have to think in money. Wow. And then I'm coming with a very strange word, perhaps for some of you, is Bildung. It's a German word. And Bildung is already, for years, an older word, but it has to do with the knowledge and skills acquired in various fields, also regarding social norms, humanistic values, and body and soul are included. Okay, this is a dualistic way of thinking, body and soul, but anyway, many people these days are thinking too much, there is only body. And this is also the viewpoint of the Association of World Education. Bildung refers to the German tradition of, now it's coming, self-cultivation. This is maturation as described as an harmonization of individuals' mind and heart in the unification of selfhood and identify within a broader society. Achieved through personal transformation, which presents a challenge to the individual's accepted beliefs. By the way, many people do think I don't believe. I was thinking in that also because in my doctoral dissertation, all people have a belief system, whether they like it or not. Without belief system, I've never met any person who can survive. A belief system seems to be for a human being as breathing, wherein philosophy and formation are linked in a manner that refers to a process of both personal and cultural maturation. And then, simply said, building, that is, make a little bit of shortcut, building is what is left when you have forgotten what you have learned in a schooling system. And now, that is my point of view, of course, everybody has the right to have Bildung as a consequence of being born. Like everybody has the right to breathe. And I know it is a problem in many countries, the human rights are not so much accepted, or at least not practiced. But in the first, we have to live in brotherhood, the first article of the Human Rights Bill. In this context, the concept of education becomes a lifelong process, lifelong learning, I'm still learning every day, of human development, rather than mere training in gaining certain external knowledge or skills. Then come education as an enlightening experience. Without improved education, nothing will change in the long run. I already was pleading for that. And education can have to do with, it is not exclusive, gender equivalence, eradication of poverty, demographical overload, place in nature, biodiversity, more consciousness about life, world, nature, degrowth, externalities, sustainable, renewable energy, etc., etc. There are many things. It is not an exclusive list, of course, but there are tensions coming. And why are there tensions coming? because there is culture and nature. There is anthropocentrism and ecocentrism. There is predominance and respect. I'm so disappointed, if I can tell you. I was not expecting in the 21st centuries there were still so many dictators on the earth. Years ago, I was not thinking that it ever could be possible, but it still is. Predominance is not respect. Then there is self-satisfaction. We will make America great again. We will make Great Britain great again. They are so satisfied with their own thinking, but where is the wonder? That is a child thing. A child is wondering, is seeing things which never were here. Why is that? Because all education, all science started with wonder. If we cannot wonder, what for? And now is coming, which worldview is distillated from this? And this worldview gives a certain behavior. And this certain behavior gives a certain ethics. But what do we see? Anthropocentrism, oh, there is a mistake. Oh, sorry, there are too many SM there. Sorry, excuse me. Belief that human beings are the central of all most significant species on the planet, or the assessment of reality through an exclusively human perspective. Regarding humankind as the central or most important element of existence, especially as opposed to a god or animals. I'm against the anthropocentrism for some decades now, because I think it is completely irrelevant. But let us face the facts. Most universities, most cultures are embedded in anthropocentrism. They think that human beings are the middle of the universe. I think science showed us difference. And now it's coming. This is an interesting philosopher, by the way, nevertheless. Protagoras of Dera, he lived 500 years before our time, and he was pre-Socratic Greek philosopher. And he said, man is a measure of all things. And I made it different. I say, man is rather measuring all things, but is not a measure. It is a major concept of the field in environmental ethics and philosophy to overcome anthropocentrism. Because anthropocentrism often is considered to be the root cause of problems created by human interaction with nature and environment. To say more, to many philosophers, anthropocentrism, if it goes on, will destroy all life, especially human beings. The rest will keep alive much longer than human beings. Too much pollution, too few natural resources, too much climate changing phenomena and so on will destroy mankind rather first. But that is not my point of view to go into that. My point of view is more to go into practical concretizations. The next generation should be interconnected with all life, energy, and consciousness. I will give an example how I see interconnectedness of all life, energy, and consciousness. The next generation should be empowered to realize the interconnectedness of all life, energy, and consciousness. What can be the consequences of society view? What can be the consequences for a culture? What can be the consequences for ecological survivable world away from an ecological crisis we are in now? For the next, what I show you, we will need real education and consciousness. And then we come here. We need, of course, new economical paradigm. And that, in my opinion, should be in an ecological way, in an economical way, and in a cultural way. That means we need a renewable culture. And I know that many people will not like that, but what to do? We are in an evolution. I will give an example of the values change in most industrialized countries for designing. For designing something into today's usual value hierarchy, we see the following. First, the criteria is financial, economical, aesthetical, and now these days also a little bit ecological. But tomorrow's needed hierarchy is ecological, biological, sociological, economical, financial, and aesthetical. What does that mean? That was the thinking of the 20th century. For me, this is the thinking of the 21st century. And we can see a reverse of values. The financial, what is most of the time now important for many people who are designing things, is the financial. But for me, it will change. And this should be first. Why? Ecological means that is our connection with the rest of the planet and the universe. That goes first. If not, as I told, this will be maybe a catastrophe. Then I will give you a concrete example. If you asked what we were doing concretely, then I will give an example of our organization here, Mondo. We went Solar 2002 is renewing culture realization in a building to transform philosophy in acting. And this interconnected is seen here very much, also in energy and consciousness. How education and consciousness is a way to other way of living. And then the future is already there. And what we can do with solar energy, to use energy in a different way. The goal of Solar 2002 is to rebuild an existing house to a zero energy house in a moderate climate. In this climate, people say, oh, we cannot do anything with solar energy. That is what we heard so many times. But what did we do? We limited the energy consumption of this building from 25,000 kilowatt hours a year to 0 kilowatt hours a year. For heating purposes, sanitary warm water, ventilation, cooling, and purifying water, and other things. Also driving car. Characteristics of this building are ecological neutral, CO2 neutral, energy neutral, water positive, all water purified at a place, and used material from nearby. Of course, I could go into this topic, but I will not do that. You can find it on the internet, finally, at the end of the presentation. And then you can see that is the way we have to think philosophical and translate it into everyday practice. How is this building looking? This is how this building is looking. Almost quiet now. Also, the sun is still shining here. On some places it will be dark, I know, but this is the building. And this is also the end of my presentation. I only can thank you for that, and you can find further information on this website. Thank you.